Turkish President's Security and Foreign Policy Council member, Mr. Mehmet Kirecci, and he's also a professor of political science. Great to have you here with us. Of course, there's a lot of diplomatic traffic here in Antalya today, and certainly this forum comes at a time when the world is facing multiple crises. You have this ongoing onslaught in Gaza, you have the war in Ukraine. Let's start our discussion with the Gaza Contact Group meeting. 20th time these ministers are meeting, and what we heard in the press conference is not something that we are hearing for the first time. There have been calls of a permanent ceasefire in the past, there have been calls for a two-state solution, but my question is, what would it take for the Gaza Contact Group to translate its vision into action?
Very good question. I think to begin with, inclusion of Indonesia into this group, I think at this level is very important and critical because of its position in Asia, Southeast Asia, and also it's a predominantly Muslim country. So they are stepping in. So in fact, even this inclusion shows that there's a great sorrow on the part of the Muslim world what is going on in Gaza. Obviously, it is a very, very critical and embarrassing situation for Western liberal countries, especially for the countries or for European countries who actually gifted the world with humanitarian laws. Mm-hmm. Having said that, this situation needs lots of pressure. At this point, because the contact group should try to put a lot of pressure on the United States to begin with, and also perhaps with the Gulf countries need to step in so that there is a serious worry on the part of the
Perhaps there's something world. That I sensed unity among the foreign ministers, because when the foreign ministers were asked about what they think about Donald Trump's plan of displacing Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, the response was immediate. It's a resounding no.
It is very interesting to see that Palestinians in general and Gazans in particular are presented with three options by the Netanyahu government. One is willingly die. Mm-hmm. They should come and kill them so that they should die willingly. Second option is they should die unwillingly, that is trying to defend their lands, their country, their freedom. That is what's happening right now. And then the third option is forcing them to go out, forced deportation to third countries. So all of these, when putting together, it seems that the Prime Minister Netanyahu is a political figure. Mm-hmm. There's an arrest warrant on behalf of him, right? There are certain international laws that is requesting his arrest as wherever it is possible, but no country is in a position to apply that, unfortunately. That's another issue. So the point is that since day one, Netanyahu's plan was turn Gaza into a parking lot, evacuate it from its occupants, that is, evacuate Gaza from Gazans. So, and I think at this point, as far as I know, this week, the report indicates that almost more than 60% of Gaza is now under Israeli occupation. Mm-hmm. Does this leave any space, any kind of a corner for almost 2 million, Gazans to live proper life? Let alone independent and sovereign life. So all of these, a kind of a sorrow and plight of our modern world. We need to actually reflect on this. In a larger geopolitical perspective, I don't think the United States is going to be able to carry Netanyahu government's atrocities more. I mean, if United States is going to focus on China as its major rival in terms of economics, in terms of technology, in terms of investments all around the world, that is, taking the ground from United States hegemony, Americans need to take care of this issue first and then come to the terms with Muslim countries. So the key to simply ease up with Muslim countries for Islamic world, which is a kind of a big block between China and the Western world, is solving the Gaza problem.
So, Professor, I understand what you're indicating.
Yes.
The person who has the power to end this brutal onslaught on Gaza is U.S. President Donald Trump.
Yes, currently he is.
And as we understand, Donald Trump is expected to make a visit to the Middle East in the coming weeks. To what extent do you think the future of the Gaza Strip depends on that visit?
Well, I think it's a very important and critical visit, and I would like to put that in this larger framework that I just mentioned. If Americans are trying to get on their own way with China so that they can keep up this economic rivalry. On top of that, if they want to stay on top of that, they need to come to terms with the plight of Muslim world, which is key to solve is Gaza and Palestine. Two-state solution is, for Israelis unviable. For Palestinians, it's not practical as we see it. But without the support of United States, without the support of Gulf countries, without the support of European countries, it is not possible. But with the support, it is possible. So we need to simply see more inclusion of European democratic liberal countries who were actually promoting human rights for decades. When it comes to, for instance, remembering Holocaust, they were on the forefront of all of those remembrance, ceremonies and everything. But currently, another atrocity is going on. Most live distributed information about the genocide is not, seen. Choose not to be seen, not to get engaged
Professor,
with it.
That makes me wonder, we're talking about more than 50,000 people killed. Most of them are...
That's as far as we know, but
exactly.
According to Lancet, maybe it's more than 150,000.
Exactly.
Not to mention the wounded.
Absolutely, and most of these people who are killed are women and children. And we are in the 21st century right now. We have a lot of awareness. Yes. So we know what happened in the past. We know what kind of atrocities have taken place in the past. So I think as human beings, we should have been more aware and should have approached this topic in a more compassionate way. But here we are today. There are people who are still trying to justify the killing of 50,000 Palestinians. So as humanity, what do you think this says about us? And how did we reach this point where the killing of tens of thousands of children is considered normal?
Unfortunately. There are two dynamics that is being recorded by history. And later generations are going to refer to us whether we failed or we actually were successful. One is a large group of people around the world, they choose to ignore what is happening in Palestine, in Gaza, in many other places as well. But on a different level, another large group of people, especially in the West, in the United States, in European countries, the streets are full of people who are protesting the atrocities, genocide happening in Gaza. So I think here we are witnessing a dynamic that is the current governments in certain countries are sort of falling apart with their population. Their population simply does not support their policy choices with regard to Gaza, with regard to Palestine, but their government. Mm-hmm. So I think which brings us to the power of Israeli lobby, not only in the United States, but in several other countries. So we need to really get fast, wake up and simply address and try to solve this problem. For weeks, no food is reaching to Gaza, no water is reaching out to Gaza.
According to the
and
UN,
babies are dying because of hunger, because of it's so disturbing.
Absolutely horrific, because the latest reports indicate that bakeries are running out of bread. In fact, all of the bakeries that were being provided with bread by UNRWA have stopped to operate. So Gaza is already on the brink of famine.
So embarrassing for our common humanity. So
absolutely. And Professor, let me talk about the Middle East as well, because as part of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, we are here to talk about the war in Ukraine, of course, the ongoing onslaught in Gaza, and the wider region of the Middle East as well. When you look at the broader dynamics, you have crisis happening in Lebanon.
Yes.
You have Syria, which has just recovered from decades of turmoil. So when you look at the broader regional dynamics and considering Turkey's pivotal position and leadership, what do you think the future holds for the Middle East?
I think the uncertainty, Turkey is trying to, with the efforts of Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, what Turkey is trying to do is to defeat the uncertainty. There is one element in this part of the world, which is Netanyahu government is exporting instability all around its neighbors. Mm-hmm. Lebanon is the same, Syria is the same, Iraq is the same, and so on and so forth. Now, Iran is the target. So what Turkey is trying to do, especially after this new transition government, Turkey is trying to actually instill a law and order in Syria. In regard, although the current government does not indicate any kind of hostility towards Syria, did not make any statement accusing Israel of anything. They are constantly attacking on certain sites in Syria. So I think a few days ago, President Trump also indicated to Prime Minister Netanyahu that Netanyahu should be reasonable when dealing with Syria, because Turkey is trying to stabilize the country. Stabilizing Syria will certainly contribute to the stabilization of the security in the region.
If you try to read why Donald Trump might have said this, because he's someone who wouldn't say the word reasonable for nothing.
Yes,
so
especially
perhaps,
for Netanyahu.
Perhaps it indicates that Netanyahu did ask for something unreasonable from Donald Trump.
Obviously, he complained about Turkey, but like he said, I mean, Turkey is trying to stabilize Syria, trying to help Syria on every level. Please remember the following sort of dynamic. During the civil war in Syria, which lasted about more than 14 years, right? Syrian people are affected, number one, and number two, Turkey is affected. The problem is that we had so many displaced Syrians in Turkey, either going through to
it was the largest
European
country in the world,
or some of them stayed. Right now, around 3 million, 3 or 3.1 million Syrians are hosted in Turkey. So their safe return to Syria is directly related to domestic politics in Turkey. So all of these, when put together, we cannot actually ignore what's happening in Syria, but rather we should be part of it in order to keep the country stable, in order for Syria to simply prosper on its own terms, remain as a sovereign country. So right now the situation in Syria, especially with the incursion of IDF, Israeli forces, they are now, I believe, 30 kilometers away from Damascus. So what is really going on? Are you going to, I'm just addressing to Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu, are you going to invade all your neighbors and create the larger state of Israel? I think there are certain things cannot be done. So not only that, but Syria means direct security and strategic concern for Turkey. So regardless whether Israel wants or not, we cannot actually ignore what's happening in Syria.
Fascinating insights, Mr. Mehmet Kirecci. Thanks very much for joining me. And of course, there's a lot of diplomatic traffic here in Antalya today. We have already heard many panels, and throughout today we will be hearing more panels from different world leaders. This forum is being attended by more than 10 world leaders, and panels have been organized. Exactly. So panels have been organized on topics such as the war in Ukraine, the ongoing Israeli onslaught on Gaza, of course, climate crisis, and then you have Asia-Pacific region. So here on TRT World, we'll be keeping you up to speed on all the latest developments coming out of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Back to you, Hazen.